Hello everyone and welcome back to another WoT Console video. My name is Zach and today we'll be taking a look at the VK4503, or in its current hero skin version, the Adler VK4503. Now this design of this tank or hero version tank was actually submitted by a EU player, goes by the gamertag Grey Weasel UK. Now, I don't remember exactly what had happened when the article was first released. I believe Rita Gamer from PC actually posted about this, and Wargaming took the appropriate steps in adding his name to the article. If you don't know about that, his name wasn't actually, although his design was used, his name wasn't actually listed in the article at first, so Wargaming took the steps to properly give him credit for this. And I have to say, Grey Weasel, this is a really cool looking tank design that you came up with, as well as the way that they implemented it onto the Adler VK4503. Now, originally he had it on a Tiger 1 tank, which would have been very cool, giving the Tiger 1 its first black variant. I feel like the black variant tanks currently losing a little bit of their prestige, as the black edition tanks were very popular, that were released with the 100 years of tanks. Now I think this is like I want to say 14th or 15th black tank, or black colored tank. Maybe that's a little bit high of an estimate. That's including the black edition tanks now, of course. But it's pretty high numbers of the color black on tanks. It is a very cool looking color. Although as far as camo factor goes, it does kind of throw a lot of things out the window. But I do like it. I like the way they had this design put on the 4503. Although with the Tiger 1 it would have been looked a lot better. I do like that they decided to put it on the VK4503. It does feel a lot better on this. And if you're wondering why it looks so similar, this is actually the Tiger 2, I want to say, base. The Tiger 2 base, that's what the 4503 is based off of. The Tiger, it's basically a lower tiered Tiger 2. And if you couldn't tell right away, it is a tier 7. But before we keep going on, let's head over to the comparison sheet so we can go over some of the stats and tell you how this stacks up to the other tier 7 German heavy tanks. So starting off in comparison, we have the Adler VK4503, the Tiger 131, and the Tiger 1 Hammer. All three are of the German nation, and all three are tier 7 premium tanks. The firepower stat for the Adler is 34, the 131 is 32, and the Tiger 1 Hammer. So right away you'll start noticing that because of the firepower stat, the Adler and the Hammer are going to be stacking up pretty well against each other, as both tanks do potentially have a chance of being able to see tier 9s. However, all tanks in this comparison stand a better chance when they see tier 8s and when they are top tier in tier 7s. But again, the Adler and the Hammer are both able to see tier 9s. Keep that in mind as we're running through some statistics. So all three tanks use the 88 caliber gun. However, the Adler and the Hammer both get the tier 8 version of the 88, while the Tiger 131 gets the tier 7 version of the 88, has less penetration and DPM, or not DPM, but damage, average damage that it can do. However, the tier 8 88 can still stack up really well, as that's where the penetration and average damage come in. So the Tiger 131 will take the reload, or the base reload, with 5.5 seconds and 10.91 as a base rate of fire. That should be obvious because of the reload, that it would have a great rate of fire. The Adler, unfortunately, is the lowest in the comparison because it has a base reload of 8.4 and 7.14. With my best crew, I was able to get the reload down to 6.93, which it's barely able to keep up with at that point, to the Tiger 1 Hammer in that case. And I think I can get the Tiger 131 down to 4.3 seconds. So from that 5.5, you can definitely see that the DPM goes up with excellent crews. But that's the only way, and that is a rank 9 captain with Brothers in Arms. It's running with vents. You definitely see that the Adler is definitely going to be pulling back as far as DPM will go. However, the 88, the Tier 8 88, gets a better penetration than the 131's. 203 on its AP rounds, 237 on its APCR, and 44 on its HE. That is both for the Adler and the Hammer, while the 131 will fall behind because of the Tier 7 88 with 169 on its AP, 227 on its APCR, and 53 on its HE. And it's actually fun to note that the HE round on the Tier 7 gun actually has better penetration than the Tier 8 88 gun. 240 base damage for the Adler and the Tiger 1 Hammer on its AP and APCR. On its HE, it's 295. 131 has a 220 on its AP and APCR, and 270 on its HE rounds. Shell cost for these tanks on its AP and HE rounds actually goes across the same, with 252 silver on its AP and HE. Keep that in mind. All three tanks are charged the same. However, on its APCR it becomes a little bit different. The APCR for the Adler is 4,400, as well as on the Tiger 1 Hammer, while the Tier 7 131 APCR rounds will only run you 3,200 silver. I always convert this into silver, as I feel that is probably the most used currency versus those of you who decide to fire gold. If you are, what a noob. Shell velocity on the 88s are very good. Normally, on the 131 it'll fall behind, again, Tier 7 gun. For the Adler, it's 1,000 meter seconds on its AP, 1,250 on its APCR, 1,000 on its HE, and that is the same stats for the Tiger 1 Hammer as well. On 131, however, it falls short because it's only 773 meters a second on its AP rounds and HE rounds, while on its APCR it gets 966. So you can tell right away that the Tiger and the Adler definitely had an advantage in being able to snapshot some opponents and longer ranges. Ammo capacity, however, 131 definitely makes up for it with 82 rounds max capacity, while 72 on the the Adler VK4503 and the Hammer. Again, that's not putting it in a downplay or downplaying it by any means, because being able to carry anything over 50 rounds in any tank is always good. 72 rounds at 240 will definitely put in its work. With the 82 rounds, you might end up evening out just because that 220 average damage will definitely catch up as far as the rounds go when penetrated. DPM, unfortunately, the Adler is in last place here, 1,713.6. Definitely feels short compared to the other 88 on the Hammer. The 2,150 DPM on that Hammer definitely feels a lot better and should have been a little bit more of a weighing point when putting in compared to the VK4503. I feel that the 88 should have still been able to be just as competitive on the Adler as it is on the Hammer. And considering what we'll get into a little bit later on in the comparison, I'll point it out why I say that should have been the same. 131 definitely takes this, unfortunately. 2,400.2. That 131 rate of fire, again, is just insane when you have a good crew and running those consumables as well as equipment. However, where the Adler can definitely shine is its gun handling and gun characteristics. 2.2 seconds of aim time, 0.33 at 100 meters dispersion, 15 degrees of gun elevation, and 8 degrees of gun depression. Now, although the 131 gets the same gun elevation and gun depression, Tiger 1 Hammer does fall off as far as the gun capabilities, with 13 degrees of gun elevation and 7 degrees of gun depression. That accuracy and dispersion, or the dispersion and the aim time, is definitely better on the Adler, and I like that. At least give it something to give it an advantage, because this DPM will definitely show itself the more you use the tank. 2.3 on the Tiger 131 and 2.7 on the Hammer. The 2.7 is definitely noticeable when you're firing compared to the Adler. 0.36 of course is the worst in this with the 131, but again 131 has preferential matchmaking, so most of the time, being that it'll be top tier, at that point 0.36 is still not bad when comparing it to when its opponents are tier 7 and lower, or in that case tier 8 and lower. The hull traverse and turret traverse on all these heavy tanks are pretty bad. 28 on the Adler and 28 on the 131, and an even worse 26 on the Hammer. However, the turret traverse is slightly better with 22 degrees a second versus the 20 that the 131 and the Hammer get, and I figure this probably plays into being able to turn the tank a little bit better. However, just from my own experience, it doesn't show as much, because either way, if you get outflanked, you're just going to be outflanked and circled by most light tanks in that case. Slow lumbering heavies always point that out. Mobility stat, it gets 13. It's the lowest. That is because of its 700 horsepower, and although it gets the same as the Hammer, the power to weight ratio is actually the worst at 10.77 compared to the other heavies. The 131 gets the best horsepower to ton ratio, as it gets 15.29 with 870 horsepower, and that is because it has a better acceleration on it, with a top forward speed of 40 on both the 131 and the Hammer. Unfortunately, just slow lagging behind it with the 38 kilometers per hour top forward speed of the Adler. It just takes a little bit too much to get up to that top speed. I think they should increase the power to weight ratio on this tank. It's just a little bit too low for my taste. It feels like a natural heavy, that's for sure. The top reverse speed on all three tanks is limited to 12, and the 5% chance is limited to, or is set at 20%. However, it does get better ground resistance, although it does not have the power to weight ratio. 0.9 on hard, 1 on medium, and 1.9 on soft is better than the 131 and the Hammer in that stat. And although the 131 does get a better mobility stat at 19, that ground resistance will definitely show itself when you're racing against, if you ever decide to race against each other. Unfortunately, the Tiger 1 Hammer does fall behind in that point. So survivability stat, you have 47 on the Adler VK4503, 49 on the 131, and 50 on the Hammer. The reason behind that is, of course, and I bring this up again because of that point I clearly said we were going to discuss later on. The Tiger 131 at tier 7 gets 1550 hit points. This is tier 8 heavy tank status. 131 gets 1500 hit points. This is standard for some tier 8s, and even some tier 7s, I believe, have this, but most of them not really. The Adler VK4503 is actually set to the correct tier 7 hit points bracket, but unfortunately I feel like it lags behind. Being that it has a worse DPM than both the 131 and the Hammer, it made no sense to have it have the lowest hit points. And the reason I say that is because although you can put shots and actually effectively penetrate them into your tanks, because the 131 and the Adler can both see tier 10s, or not, I'm sorry, tier 9 tanks, when you're in your bottom tiers, having that lower DPM and lower health makes it feel underwhelming to be able to push yourself, even though you're a heavy tank, into those situations or those brawling situations and being competitive with other players. That then reduces you to become the medium or the heavy tank that's sniping in the back, and I feel that should have probably been adjusted and changed from the stat on PC, or at least increase it to the 1500 that the 131 has. However, that is just a personal point I wanted to point out. Just going over some of the stats from other tier 8s or tier 7s. 1550 for the one Hammer definitely fits. Unfortunately, I feel like it's a little bit underwhelming because of the lower DPM on the Adler. However, that's just my side to it. Overall armor thickness, the thickest part of this tank is 100 millimeters. The lowest part of it is 20, and compared to the 131 and the hammer, it starts at 20, but those start at 25. So the lowest part of your armor being 20 will definitely show itself. However, because the armor is sloped or angled, it does give you the opportunity to side scrape a little bit better compared to the 131 or the hammer. On the front of the hull, all three tanks come with 100 millimeters. On the sides of the hull, it's 80, and on the rear, it's 80. Again, the tanks are pretty much the same as far as armor thickness goes. On the front of the turret, it is 100 millimeters across the board. On these sides, it's 80, and on the rear, it's 80. So again, as far as the armor goes, it's the same. I feel like the hit points should have been the same. Concealment stat, the Adler and all three tanks, the Adler, the 131, and the hammer, will all have increased effective concealment because of their unique skin, or camo, whatever you want to call it. Again, unfortunately, even though the Adler has a really cool looking camo on it, having it down at 19 is, due to its heavy tank nature, an unfortunate thing. 0.11 and 0. When stationary and 0.6 when moving just feels a little bit more underwhelming compared to the 0.13 and 0.8 on the 131 and the hammer. However, again, that is up to Wargaming to decide the statistics of tanks. Spotting stat across the board again is something similar as with what happened with the armor or survivability stat. 78 across the board with 380 base view range and 620 base radio range. And that's to keep in mind that when you start kicking it up, you'd probably want to do that on a heavy tank, as because this has less hit points, you'd probably want to get spot tanks faster than you get spotted. Tank costs, which is what everybody wants to know, whether or not you decide to purchase this tank in their bundles, or if you decide to purchase the base tank by itself. 8,860 gold is what the tank is worth, versus the 7,700 gold that the 131 and the hammer are valued at. 8,860 for a tank that has less hit points just feels a little bit underwhelming, personally. However, what you buy your premium tanks for, of course, is always important, and that would be your premium bonuses. The Adler VK4503 has the best tier 7 bonus, and as far as silver earnings go, is a 50% silver bonus premium multiplier, and that the 131 and the hammer both start at 30%. So right away, the Adler sets itself apart because it's trying to give you an increase in silver earnings. However, all three tanks gain 20% premium experience bonus without any premium crew bonus added to those. So the only thing that really sells the Adler VK4503 to me would be its better gun statistics, apart from its poor DPM, along with its premium multiplier. If that's something that interests you right away, then you should probably purchase this tank. If not, if you have the Tiger 1 hammer, you can probably skip out on the Adler VK4503 in my opinion. But before we keep continuing, I'll show you exactly how this all plays out as far as the armor goes in the armor model viewer in game. So I know after a while of me rambling on and going over a comparison, numbers only do so much. So here is the armor model viewer in game as we currently have it on the VK4503, or the Adler that I should properly respectfully call it at this point. So you can see that along the sides and on the turrets, you have about 90 millimeters of effective armor. On the top, of course, if you ever get hit by artillery, you can definitely notice some weak points. So the front of it is the thickest part of it of the tank, but that is just stressing it. It's about 100 millimeters thick on the front as well as on the turret. But be careful, as you can definitely see that even facing forward, you only have about 20 millimeters on the front, and even as effectively as it goes, that even if you have 20 millimeters here, anything over, I'd say 76 could still penetrate this without any need for premium rounds. 76 millimeter guns could go through it. I've seen the 85 millimeter that the most tanks. This is a tier 7, so keep in mind that most tanks that you meet will pretty much go through the front of your tank. Because of the well slope, it has a small slope on the sides. You can do a little bit of side scraping, however, you would probably want to keep it towards the right of the tank. Because the left side, you expose a little bit too much of the commander's hatch, so not really good on the when trying to side scrape to your left. However, if you side scrape on the right, that definitely hides that weak point, and you have good armor right here. But always keep in mind that if someone does become a little bit more aware of it, hitting right about here in this area, even if you're effectively side scraping right here, anyone that aims right there has a good chance of penetrating. And effectively, you're only going up to, I think, about 120, 140 millimeters of penetration of effective armor. It does get ricochets, but the minute you push up into tier 8s, tier 9s, you're definitely not going to have any of this. As far as side scraping goes, if you're ever in a bottom tier matchmaking, definitely don't try to side scrape. Just try to poke out, take a shot, and pull back. However, even when you're top tier, don't overestimate the armor of this tank. Again, most tanks should have enough penetration on their premium rounds to go right through this. A few tanks and tank destroyers will definitely have penetration to be able to go through it on their standard rounds. Keep that in mind. Some of the heavies, I would say the OI shoots. The OI with the 150 centimeter always uses HE will definitely start doing some serious damage to you. Just try not to get them to aim up on the top here. If they start aiming to the commander's hatch, or even if they hit the roof of this, you'll definitely feel that 150. The KV-85, tier 6, the M6, they'll start putting rounds into you, if you don't start angling. Try to keep the angle, keep your tank moving around. You'll definitely be able to bounce a few shots, but again, not really some dependable armor. As you can tell, it was the VK4503, as far as it goes, is pretty much playing exactly like a Tiger would. You have the possibility of being able to bounce shots, but not being able to tank too many. The hit points, of course, will help you. 1400, definitely a good, but how far does it go as a tier 7? Not too far when you're even when you are top tier. Just keep that in mind, that even though because it is sloped on the front, you'll definitely pull off some ricochets. But the minute someone starts going into their premium rounds, that effective armor will pretty much become useless. So without further ado, let's head into the gameplay. So we're going to be starting off today's replay or gameplay with Arctic region in the Adler VK4503. Now, something to point out, I will give you guys a heads up on both replays. I will show you they are short battles and they are not an ace tanker. Unfortunately, no matter how much I tried, I just could not enjoy the Adler, but I was at least able to get some decent gameplay of the tank to be able to say that, or show you that this is the way the tank plays out in some top tier matchmaking. As far as it goes, whenever you end up with this tank in the bottom tier, cry. That's the only thing I can honestly say. It felt really underwhelming to go against top tanks and being in the bottom tier, and I have no idea what this T-37 decided on doing. That's exactly what a Swiss Scout is. I did enjoy that from Spartan. I forgot to say that. I should probably go tell him about that. T-44-100, I managed to get a good tracking shot on him. My buddy Sudden Death, who I'm playing with, managed to get him in the store meal. He has the top gun, I believe, on that gun, and just melted him with that 128. Set him on fire. Definitely got a good amount of assisted. So I was trying to decide whether or not to push up the middle or go over to the right side and push down this. However, nope, didn't manage to get a shot there. However, when I noticed that the artillery was in there, in the middle. I didn't really want to push through that side. And although our team is pushing up on this, you'll see right away that not a lot of them decide to push around. So perfect tank to put this Adler against would be the Tiger 1, and what do you know? One of these games actually includes the Tiger 1, and a very incompetent Tiger 1 at that. At least in my opinion here. He definitely misplayed on these, and I was able to pump 3 shots in him before he even flinched at any one of mine. And oh hell no, I'm not going against a KV2. Take a shot, pull back, let him kill somebody else with that one shot. Using the derp on that tank definitely feels fun. However, I don't want to be the person that receives that derp, as he'll pretty much penetrate. 252, and I knock out the gun on the 131. I have one of the more unique perks that a lot of people don't necessarily use, which is Eagle Eye, which tells you what the damaged modules are on tanks that you're firing at, which is very helpful when you're trying to track or notice if you do any kind of damage or critical damage to enemy players. So I'm putting this 88 on this Adler to work. You can see I'm not taking any risks by getting shot by them. However, KV2 still wants to fire. KV2 does KV2, and it was actually very funny and annoying that that shot didn't penetrate, although the first one did. So the ELC finishes off the KV2. I swipe in, take the Tiger 1, and I'm pretty sure I did most of the damage to that Tiger 1, which is still hilarious. I just gotta say. It's funny enough that I was pushing up with some light tanks on this side. So enough of that. Pushing around, we noticed that the team ended up going back to the enemy base and managed to get a good sniping shot on that. You can see that 2-second aim time definitely showing there. Or I think it was 2.1. Still the better ones. I probably wouldn't have been able to do that with the hammer. Probably, maybe not. But this one's even better. On the VK2801, definitely got a good shot in there. Sniping from that far with that bunch of the tank exposed. Definitely better on this tank. It does have some unique stuff that I like about it. The gun, of course, is one of them. Although the hammer does have the same gun, it feels a little bit better with that aim time on the Adler than it would on that tank. And like I said, this gameplay was very short, just to show you some of the quick games that you can get in and get out from with the Adler if your team is competent. However, this was before I went into the slump of losing so many games. Apparently, I got that one from somebody. Who was it? Someone in the chat actually told me, gotta increase those carrying skills. That's what it was. I'm not gonna say his name. He should know who he is if he ever watches this video. So this one, although it was a ×2 and it was a victory, 4,050. I did have a second mastery in this. 2,450 or 2,445 damage, 11 penetrations, 2 enemies destroyed, 609 assisted, with a profit of 2,000 or 133,195. Of course, this is with the added 10,000 that I got from thinning the herd bonus up, or not bonus up, just op, along with the 1.25 boost from the thing. And you can see 1,227 was a second class mastery badge. And I did end up on top with, what is that, 300 more than the next person. However, I don't really like the low base experience. I would have preferred higher, unfortunately. Oh, I hate when I do that. I like backed out of it so fast. So again, I did that. Really couldn't pause it. There we go. So 14 shots fired, only 11 pen, 2,445 damage dealt, with only 3,528 ammunition cost. The base silver amount is 67,585. The operation gave me another 35,000. Still not a bad bonus. This is plenty enough for most of you players that don't want to have the added cost of a tier 8 premium but still want the tier 8 premium bonus. That 50% goes a long way, and that's just showing you just an average game. This was a fast game, and even if you don't end up and you lose your games, I think I was still profiting around 38 to 40,000 on average on losses, and that was as long as I got 5 penetrations. And a couple assisted, still that 50% bonus goes a long way. And we'll go over that some more as soon as we go over into the second game, which will be right here. So this time we're taking it in Wide Park, I want to say. I don't remember the exact name of this one. Man, I should really start remembering these maps. This is a great map for tier 7s and 8s. However, when it goes past tier 8s, it just doesn't make any sense. As you can see, we're still a little bit top tier. We're in the top, I think that was 5 or 6. Oh, 6. Why did that go off? Wow. That was a little bit embarrassing. So, rushing around, you can see that definitely the tank does have a little bit of a slow start, but once it gets moving, very noticeable. Even for a heavy tank, it has great mobility, and I like that in some heavy tanks. I prefer having it, giving it a little bit of an increase to that 40. But you know, Tiger 1, the Adler, not too different as far as that goes. Just a few 2 kilometers. Doesn't become noticeable unless you decide to race a tank for some reason, which sounds fun. Just being honest. So I'm getting spotted here, but I didn't realize that it wasn't the light tanks that was spotting me. In this case, it was actually a VK3601H and a Hellcat up in the top corner. You should see it in K0 right on the map. A Hellcat, man. It was annoying to deal with. .3601H, try to get a snapshot, and got it in. 240. That aim time really does come in handy when you're trying to snap shots in, or at least place shots. So my tracks did eat that one, I got lucky. However, I wasn't able to finish him off. And you are going to see me make a misplay in this one, but it's before the misplay is what I wanted to point out. So our team is doing some great defense on that side. We decided to push over on this side. However, this LTTB was kind of annoying. And even though it's 1,000 meters a second, it felt like this should have hit. And it didn't. Which I kept getting annoyed at because I kept questioning. I was like, you have 1,000 meters a second. The tank just backed away for a slight second and was able to dodge that. Just annoyed the heck out of me. Same with this. That felt like that should have connected, but light tank biased. That's what it is. The light tanks just really didn't want to get hit that day. Nope. I was denied 3 times, I swear. Keep an eye on that LTTB. That tier 8 light tank's gonna come back for some suicide type of play. So you can see here. Again, that DPM just feels a little bit low on this Adler. And I blocked the first shot from my guy, but for my friend right behind me. But I'm able to still elise it. Oh, wow, it was a 131. I did not notice that. And snapshot. Gotta love that accuracy. I'm not going to be able to finish off the light tank, unfortunately, but I am able to get more shots into him. And if you're paying attention to the map, you'll notice right away I caught on right at this point. That LTTB decided to actually go all the way around. However, the SU-101, for some reason, decided to fire heat. And I decided to make the even stupider play of just staying still and angling my tank, because that's what I felt was trying to test the tank. This was a bad misplay for me. I really should have gotten out the way, and unfortunately for me, that SU-101 really didn't need to fire any heat rounds. I mean, on his standard 100mm, he would have been able to go through me with no problem. However, I guess he felt like I see a Tiger 2, maybe. I should probably fire a heat round just to be sure. Really wasn't necessary. That was probably a waste of silver, just being honest. The Adler doesn't have that much armor in the front that, again, most tier 6s and 7s could comfortably go through the front of the VK 4503 with no problem. And I feel like that's one of the downfalls because it's similar to that of the Tiger 131, the Tiger 1, or um, the Hammer. Frontally, it's better to bully tanks, but when it meets tier 6s and tier 7s, those tanks just go out the way because penetration says otherwise. And again, that was my own fault. I made a misplay of myself. Decided just to stay out in the open to an SU-101 that has great DPM. There was no way I was going to dodge it regardless. So it's just funny to point out that my own mistakes cost me that. If not, I could have probably done a lot more damage than what I currently did. However, my team still ends up pulling it out in the end. We managed a win, and yeah, still fairly decent. However, again, like I pointed out, still not an ace tanker, unfortunately, but does not net me a decent profits. 2,581 damage done, 11 penetrations, 665 damage blocked, 303 assisted damage, 2 tanks destroyed, 2,542 experience, 90,241 silver earned. And again, this is to point out that the 1,412 base experience is to point out that this tank can still be profitable with that premium silver multiplier. Let's see, does it say that here? Premium silver multiplier 1.5. Yeah, no, that's right. 68,682 would have been the base silver earnings again when you add that in, along with the ammunition cost of 4,284 for firing 17 rounds. That's still a good profit, even if you, well, in this case I died 8,498. The silver profitability of this tank is definitely good, even if you don't run a premium time or a premium account. 50,000 is still profitable for anyone. However, as far as final thoughts go on this tank, if you own the Tiger 1 Hammer, or even the base Tiger, it still runs a great competitive tank. The Adler unfortunately falls behind as far as the hit points and the DPM goes, and the premium benefits of having 50% silver is great, but you'd want the premium bonus to be applied to a winning game more than you would want it a losing game. And unfortunately, because of the I should say because of the poor armor on it and hit points, many of your games will probably not be with you winning. If you do, good on you. Very good. You're definitely outdoing me in this tank. However, I don't feel like I lose anything by just playing the Hammer. Tier 7s isn't really where I play at either way. I normally play tier 8s, 9s, and 10s. However, as far as the silver earnings go, it is still profitable as a tier 7 tank. And that's probably the best selling point that I could give you in purchasing this tank. A tier 7 that gives you 50% silver premium bonus is still better than the 30% on most of the tier 7s in the game. And that beats you out on having to pay the additional cost for a tier 8 premium that normally are your silver grinders. So if you want that, then go ahead, the Adler is a great buy. However, as far as being competitive or being able to keep up in its tier, it does not stand up to the 131 or the Hammer in that sense. And I don't want to even try to stack it up to any of the other tier 7 heavies. It just probably wouldn't pull ahead, unfortunately. However, if you guys disagree with me, feel free to state so in the comments. If you had a better game, you can submit the replay. I'd love to be able to feature it. If you had an ace tanker in this, good on you. I wasn't able to in the few games that I was able to get into it. Unfortunately, again, I just didn't feel enjoyable driving the tank on a personal level. The again, driving force behind it is being able to get gameplay for you guys, and if I'm not able to get an ace tanker, I at least try to show you the best games that I can have in it. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like down below. comment if you didn't dislike it. Leave a comment down below also telling me why you dislike it, or just give me your overall thoughts of what you think of this tank. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time.